So coming back to this, it's been some time to say the least. But like I told you guys I wasn't consistent, right? Anyways, I was completely lost. Like I was left staring at my screen for just hours, unsure of what to even do to start. And even when I did figure out something, I just didn't know how to bring myself to do it. But luckily, I have friends. Yeah, surprising, right? Well, just to explain that, I talked about game dev to one of my friends. And honestly, I was a bit scared about how he'll react. Yeah, I was scared for good reason. I was put to work for hours on end. Just kidding, obviously. It was fun with zero pressure. Okay, so let's just ignore that. Let's go over a little quiz, you know? What does every game need? Well, a lot of things, honestly. Um, hmm. But I was thinking of a pause button, so good job if you got that right. So let's just add the pause button here, you know? First, I made a couple of different sprites for the pause and play buttons, then decided on which one to use. This took quite a while considering my indecisiveness. I then added the sprites to Godot and got the buttons working. Making the pause was surprisingly easy in itself, but what wasn't as easy was fixing the stuff that broke. So, ignoring the completely random placement of the button and its size, you can see that whenever I press it, the slime plays its death animation. And no, this isn't intended if you couldn't already tell. So obviously I had to find the script I've made for this animation, which took a painfully long amount of time, especially considering my horrible naming. Like, what was I doing? So the script itself was called Death Screen, and that didn't give me much help. But eventually I found the node linked to the script, being the play again button. Wow, thanks past me. Okay, and with this, I found that process mode is when paused. And considering the animation plays whenever the node is able to process, the pause button, or any form of the game being paused, triggers the exact same result. Then I tried moving the code to my player script, but long story short, that just didn't work. So I kept playing around with it and then eventually had the amazing idea to move the code to a new random node that solely controls the animation script. So first in the player script, I set the node's process mode to be disabled once the game loads. Then once the player dies, its process mode changes to always. And finally, I just moved the code and wow, everything was fixed. For now, I guess. Well, last time I was struggling to find a place for the pause button. And we definitely aren't leaving it in the most random spot here. So, obviously lacking creativity myself, I just relied on my friend. Um, yeah. So, I changed the layout a bit to fit in the pause button and just make it look better. And I'm kind of surprised I couldn't think of moving stuff myself. But we don't talk about that, you know? Okay, quick change to make the button just look better by just turning this on. Now we're gonna make the button sprite change slightly whenever you hover your mouse over it. It's such a small detail and I don't really know why I spent so long on it. But I guess I learned from it. Who knows? So as you can see here, I tried adding an area 2D with a collision shape to detect whenever the mouse enters it. Then created two nodes with one for each sprite. So I tried using a signal as the detection thingy, and wow, little code showcase here. Well, tested that and it didn't work for whatever reason. Then I guess past me found out that the button nodes themselves have the same mouse entered signal. Think about it now, it probably links to how the button itself changes whenever the mouse enters. Don't completely trust me here since I don't exactly know, but yeah, wow, even more testing. And wow, more working. That's cool. Oh yeah, and I just realized here, instead of using the other method I was gonna do with one node for each sprite and just toggle visibility based on whichever one is needed, I just changed the texture of the same sprite node and I kinda showed that in the code just like a minute ago. But I didn't notice, so like who cares? Um, the change here is like really small, but trust me, it works. Well, the first part at least. Now it's just about changing it back once the mouse exits. And wow, we're done here. I guess I did a side-by-side comparison here as well, so like, yeah, here you go, you're welcome. I'll probably make a proper video like dedicated to making a pause button later on. So yeah, shameless self-sponsor. Go watch that when I do make it. Um, if you wanna, I mean, I should just stop at this point. Anyways, after this, I thought that, oh no, once you're dead, you'd probably be able to pause, and you just don't want that happening. So I obviously just went ahead and tried prefixing that. Well, turns out I was fixing an issue that didn't even exist. So, yeah. Well, if you do want to know why, which I doubt, it's just because the pause button can't process while the game is paused, which is due to its process mode. So, since dying also technically pauses the game, the pause button can't work. So, you just can't pause like that. Well, now, what's a pause button without a play button? Well, it'll be a completely useless button and completely break the game. So we don't want that happening. Sorry, pause button. So here I'm just reusing my pause by copying it over. And I'm pretty much going to use the same code and logic. Only notable part here is me being too stupid to realize I was actually editing the pause script. So it took me a bit too long to figure that out. Well, after that, I just had to desperately hope that undoing it will fix the pause button. Well, yeah, I really did work. So, like, I'm lucky for that. Okay, so I'm not gonna bore you with the same old stuff. So let's just skip over that. But I am gonna bore you with the new stuff after. So, like, yay. So, in the left panel thingy, you can see that the play button is after the pause one, which basically means that it appears over it. So instead of having to change both buttons' visibilities, I can just have the pause always on, with the play covering it when necessary. In the same function used to pause the game, we can just add a new signal being emitted to the play button, which tells it to turn on the visibility for it. And yeah, I forgot to do this before, but the play button should be able to process when the game is paused. So there. And finally, it's just a matter of turning off visibility when pressing the play button again. And that's pretty simple, so we're just done here. Yay. Then we have to make a pause screen, because obviously you can't just have nothing once you pause a game, right? Well, it's not gonna look the best right now, but it just exists, so you can't be complaining. Well, I can't be complaining. To make it, I just had a panel that receives signals from whenever the play or the pause button is pressed to toggle its visibility on or off. So as you can see here, I just added the buttons here. Just skip that a little bit because I'm clearly going into too much detail here. I say as I'm about to go into even more of it. Well, the resume button works fine by just using the same idea and the same code as the play button. But for some reason, the main menu just completely breaks the game. The button, that is. This was also just kind of a pain to fix, but I eventually realized that it's something to do with taking damage, because that's the only thing I have that actually slows the game. So here I made the button emit a signal to basically my main script. I tried making it so that if the button is pressed, you basically just can't take damage, which is the same as exiting the platform. And surprisingly, that actually worked. Only a bit though. Because for whatever reason, it just doesn't work right after you lose a life. Which, thinking about it now, is probably because I have it set that the game speed returns to normal after a timer ends that starts after taking damage. But that timer can't end if you change the scene because it basically just ceases to exist. And therefore, wow, the game stays slowed. I'm so smart sometimes. So yeah, I just tried some other methods to fix this as well, but a clear fix that took way too long to think of was just setting the game speed to normal each time the scene is loaded. One easy fix, huh? The same thing applied to the restart button, slowing down the game, but at least I didn't have to wreck my brain for a solution this time. How fun! Well, I guess I saved the best for last, or whatever, because the quit button was just the easiest. That feels like a metaphor for something. But yeah, it was just like one line of code. And finally, to end this mess off, I just added some more options you can choose from when you lose, instead of just being forced to play again. So much for player attention now, huh? But like, oh well, freedom, I guess. So that's gonna be all for this video. Once I'm editing this, I'm probably gonna be working a bit more on my game. Hopefully, I plan to add the different modes next time and also try making the game just look better. And yeah, that's all. So, thanks for watching, everyone, and hope you guys have a great day.